in current events, we had a fatal police shooting, another fatal police shooting in Minnesota. His brother Dante Wright, 20 years old, shot to death by a cop, Officer Porter, or now formerly Officer Porter of the Minnesota Police Department out there. And Rodney, I want to go to you first with your expertise. What do you feel about the stop in the shooting? What's your perspective and from your experience of 22 years? People don't know Rod had 22 years in the police department, and he was also a supervisor in the police department. Go ahead, Rod.
I watched the video like about 3 or 4 times. The female officer who actually had 26 years on the job, and she was also the training officer. So the other 2 officers that were with her, she was actually training them. The thing is, definitely, in my opinion, not a justified shooting. Basically, I thought the tactics were wrong. I know people say, oh, it's easy to say that after it's over. But the reality of it is some things should come naturally. The mistake that they made was he shouldn't have been cuffed by the open door with a car running. You know what I mean? He should have been taken to the back of the car. It was 3 of them. He should have been removed from the car if he was whatever they claimed they had on him or whatever. But what happens is once you start losing control of the scene, then sometimes, not all, but sometimes there's officers that panic and they do whatever they can to try to make it stop because they don't want him to get away. So the reality of it is, it looked to me, she's saying she claimed she had a taser, which to me, I don't see how you can say that. Your gun is extended straight out in your face. You know if it's your gun or if it's a taser.
And Rob, and walk people through that don't know, like you had a taser on your hip before. Walk the people through that. Talk about the strong hand side to your non-dominant side and which way the taser is fronted and the colors and all that stuff like that, so people understand.
Well, there's clearly a color difference between a taser and your firearm. You know, and your firearm is always on your strong hand. If you're right-handed, then it's on your right side. If you're left-handed, it's on your left side. And a taser would be the opposite of your strong hand. So the thing is, some people put a taser just like their gun on the other side, or sometimes they turn it to where they have to cross draw. That means they have to reach across their waist to pull it out. But a taser and a gun feel nothing like each other. Nothing. The weight, the like I said, the color, the hand grip. I don't know how a person can mistake the taser for a firearm. You know what I mean? And like I said, maybe they're blind or they never held a firearm in their hand before. But the thing is, here's something that people may not be realizing too. She can't use the defense that he got in the car and she thought he was going to reach for something because she said that she thought she had her taser. So if you thought he was reaching for a gun, then you wouldn't have your taser, you would have your firearm. So she just took that defense away from herself by saying, hey, he got in the car and I shot him because I thought he was reaching for something. But you were still yelling out taser, 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 and you said you thought you had your taser in hand. So you couldn't have been thinking that. But I definitely think a situation that they lost control of the scene really easy, and she made a very tragic choice. She made a tragic choice. And
let me ask you this question, Rodney. Is it possible that this story was concocted after the shoot? Not even saying if it's probable, just saying if it's possible that somebody said, look, in light of what's going on in this state already, or what's going on in the country already, the first thing we do is admit that it was a mistake. And just say, hey, you know what? I just pulled out the wrong, firearm or whatever, wrong weapon and used it.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. I can't say what happened with her situation or who she spoke to afterwards. But when situations like this happen, the union gets involved. The union has lawyers that come and represent you. They talk to you, see what your version of the story is. And basically, they kind of help you articulate it in a certain way. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I'm sure she probably spoke to somebody. I mean, this is a serious incident. I'm sure the union got involved, and I'm sure she spoke to lawyers. So when they probably saw what happened, you have to come up with some sort of defense. But that probably was the best defense that they could come up with.
But you don't think a 26-year vet would have made this mistake ordinarily?
No. Well, that's another misconception, Kelvin. People think because you got a lot of time on the job, that you're really experienced in the streets. That's not the case all the time. Gotcha. Sometimes people are in indoor assignments for majority of their career. Like a person can have 29 years on the job, but 20 of those years they were doing administrative work inside. So then you throw it back out on the street and then they're in the blind. They don't know what they're doing. They're not comfortable out there. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I know she was a training officer, so I don't know. I know in NYPD, the training officer mostly is an inside position, and they go out occasionally. So I don't know how it worked in her state, but 26 years doesn't mean you know what you're doing out there.
Gotcha. So you're saying that the fact that she was a training officer doesn't necessarily mean that she had a lot of experience training. You know,
Correct.
So yes, so that's interesting, because it seems from what you told me or who you told us already, she's already made several mistakes. You know, leaving the car running, you know, bringing them closer. Doesn't seem like she's very good at the job. You know, so that kind of dovetails into what normally happens to me, which is, oh, we need more training.
Yeah,
you know. Yeah. And I don't know about y'all, but I'm kind of sick of hearing that, man.
Yeah. The thing is, too, she had two inexperienced officers with her. So the thing is, officers tend to be guided by what the veteran officer says, or the senior officer says, or a supervisor says on the scene. You have to basically instruct them constantly. Those just from the rookies that I've seen. They come out, they're green. They're not very aggressive and assertive, and they don't want to make mistakes. So they're very cautious before they do things, and they only do things when they're told to do them. So she should have been maybe controlling the scene a little bit more, telling him what to do and whatever. Don't cuff him by the door, bring him there. Make sure. Another thing too, once you know that you're going to remove, correct. Once you know somebody is about to be removed from the car or taken out the car, the first thing you should tell them is to cut the car off. Cut the car. The car could be dangerous too. The car could run over your foot, your leg, knock you down. You know what I'm saying? The car is dangerous when it's running.
Yeah.
So
yes. So what another police involved incident was a lieutenant, military active duty person got pulled over in Virginia. His brother had his full uniform on. I'm gonna play it back to people that know. He was driving his SUV he just purchased on a dark street. This is in the middle of the night, dark street. They throw the lights on him. And he decides instead of stopping right there because he was fear for his life, he pulled to a more lit area, which was a gas station. And the brother had his temporary tag. The reason they said he was pulling him over because they didn't see his license plate. He had a temporary tag in the window, and it just went crazy from there. And they maced the brother and stuff like that. And I'm bringing this back to you. Sorry again, Rod. But you have the expertise on this because you have pulled over people in your past job. So Rod, what do you think about that one?
Well, the first thing I want to say is pulling over people is probably the most dangerous thing that police officers do, right? So the thing is, and you have to take into accountability the climate of the way things are going on now. People are seeing in the media every day Black men being shot by the police. You don't know how the person you stop may be thinking about and how he feels about getting pulled over by the police because of the climate that we're in. So officers need to take that into consideration. He attempted to pull this Army lieutenant over, and the Army lieutenant explained that he didn't pull over right away because he didn't want to pull over in a dimly lit area. So he pulled over in the gas station where it was more light. Pulls over, throws his hands out the window, and then the thing is, the officer, I guess because he didn't pull over when he wanted him to exactly, and where he wanted him to, he took the scene to like times 12, the yelling, the screaming, the threats, the macing or whatever. The thing is, like, once he pulled over and he put his arms out the window, he's surrendering. He's not putting up a fight. He's not, he may see him as not complying completely, but you have to take into consideration, you don't know what this person's head at. He may be thinking, he may be afraid. That's why he doesn't want to get out the car. That's why he didn't want to pull over in a dark area. You don't know how people are dealing with seeing cops shooting unarmed people today. It affects everybody differently. So they have to take that into consideration when they're doing car stops. Not saying jeopardize your life, not put your life on the line, pulling cars over and not thinking, but you have to take that into consideration. And this officer was fired for this, if I'm not correct.
Yeah, you're correct. I mean, yeah, and the thing about that, it showed the person that showed the most humanity and most class and calm was the person getting pulled over.
Yeah,
he had his hands out. He had his dog. I mean, this is safe. This is a safe brother. He had his dog in a cage in the car, and the dog was suffering. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm surprised Peter didn't come up. They came at Mike Vick. Why didn't he come with this cop? You know what I'm saying? Like, his dog suffering and everything.
There was two temperaments between the two officers that were doing the stop too. If you pay attention, there was another officer there. He wasn't as excited as the other officer, the one that they fired. You know, seemed like he was able to deal with it a little bit better, and he was trying to get him to get out the car so it could seem like it would calm the other officer down. You know, but you know, it's unfortunate, and like I said, you know, another bad choice.
Yeah,
right. I know there was significant pressure also coming from the military, I believe, because I think you got Fort Bragg or something down there, and from what I understand, like they were, you know, their social media was on fire regarding this, you know. So so I'm pretty sure that pressure might have you know, facilitated, you know, quicker action being taken, or you know.
And you got a lot of police officers that are former military.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he tried to cop a plea at the end of that joint, trying like, oh, we can work it out, you know, whatever. Like, you know, let's
after he calmed down, he realized he made a boo boo. Like this,
going
to get out of hand. You know, it's not going to end here. You know,
I'm gonna ask you a question, Rod, and this may not be a fair question. Give you a quick example. Bill Parcells, the coach, used to coach the Giants and the Jets and the Cowboys. But anyway, he was talking to Lawrence Taylor one time, and Lawrence Taylor was like, "How do you know when it's time to retire?" And he told Lawrence Taylor, "When you want to stand around the pile and not jump in it, that's when it's time to retire." How does a police officer know when it's time to give it up?
Yeah, that's a difficult question, Calvin, because the thing is, I always kind of notice the guys, there's different type of reasons everybody's there, you know.
Gotcha.
Some people say, hey, it's just a job, it's a career, I'm gonna do my 20, grab this pension, and I'm gonna be out. Then you got people that the job is their identity, you know what I mean? So it's going to be different between those two people. Some people are going to say, hey, I'm going to take the pension and run. And also there's a culture on the job that actually now they frown upon you retiring. You know, they say, oh, you're supposed to love this. You're supposed to stick to it. You're supposed to, no, I don't love anything that doesn't love me back. You know, so the thing is, it depends on the individual and what he's originally there for, you know. And to me, I think police officers' pensions are nothing to frown upon. I mean, I left. I never looked back, you know. So, and I never regretted leaving either.
Right. Gotcha.
But it's a difficult question.
Right. And I thought it was.
What you there for me? If you're asking me, I knew it was time to go when I got tired of doing it.
Gotcha.
You know, and the department was changing, and there's a lot of things that, you know, it's different for a black man on the police department than it is for a white man on the police department.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it sounds like a job harder to love, you know.
Like when I see people that are so in love with the job, you know, especially minorities, like I said, they fall into the culture. You know what I'm saying? They fall into the culture. They lose their own personal identity and they adopt a new identity of the culture of the policing.
Wow. So we had another fatal shooter. This sorry for everybody. We're not gonna go through and make this happen.
Yeah, this is a bad week.
But this is a bad week, and we just got to talk about it as black men. Like we have black sons and stuff like that, and you know, and some of us have, you know, we have our daughters nowadays. They killing our kids too, and our females. So in Chicago, they had another fatal shooter. I'm not sure, Jamie. Do we have a video?
Hold on, my man is coming through. He coming through.
What's okay, white light. All right.
We had to break it up a little bit. Man.
Yeah, we ain't seen you in a while. How you doing?
So we had another fatal shooter in Chicago. It was a 13-year-old young man. He was out. It was at 2:45. It was the early morning hours. I mean, really early, mid early morning hours. Hanging out with a gang member from Latin Kings, and there was some shootings. I'm gonna give people the story. They were shooting at cars, and Rod, you could talk about the system that they have where they could find out where these shootings come from. And police arrived on the scene, and they went down this alley, and this young man, they chased the man down the alley. Allegedly, he had a firearm, and he looked like he was trying to, I don't know, it's different ways. He was going to toss it, he had it in his hand, and the cop shot him and killed him with one fatal shot. But people got to realize the cop also rendered aid. But Rod, can you lead us on what you think about the shooting and your thoughts?
I think this is different circumstances.
My man's back.
What I'm saying? This is.
Go ahead, Ron, go ahead.
I definitely think. Yeah, it's all right. I said this shooting is under different circumstances. Mm-hmm. There was a report of shots fired. The 13-year-old was out there hanging with another individual. I think he was actually even 21 years old. The other person he was hanging out with. Yep. And I think the officers pulled up and he gave chase to the 13-year-old. Chasing him down the alley to the point where he stopped. And he stopped at a gap in between the fence and took something out of his waist or his pocket. And then he tossed it and then turned. And then the officer shot him. Mm-hmm. Technically, under the guidelines of law enforcement, that's a justified shooting because there was a firearm on that scene. A firearm was in his hand at one time, and the firearm was recovered shortly after he shot the 13-year-old. And I know this doesn't make it easier, but I saw the film and the officer maintains, I think, amazing control because he only shot him once. Not to say that shooting him once was a good thing. He was able to, because most law enforcement teaches you to shoot in bursts of twos. And he was able to just fire that one shot and then to assess. And then he didn't have to shoot anymore. So I'm going to say the officer did maintain control of that scene, considering what he was dealing with. Now, some people might not like what I'm saying, but I'm telling you from a law enforcement background and perspective. And the thing is, I wouldn't want to be out there facing people with guns. And then you also have a split second to make a decision when that individual turned around, knowing that there was a gun involved on that scene.
And the thing is, the other thing I was thinking about with people with the and he rendered aid. So a lot of things that happened with this cop. He rendered aid.
He immediately rendered aid, and they immediately called for an ambulance to arrive on the scene.
Mm-hmm. He tried to give him, from what I understand, he tried to give him first aid, mouth to mouth, the whole thing.
Yeah, made an attempt to save him.
Yeah, and what people got to realize sometimes with these young people, with these gangs, and I'm going to give perspective because all of us know people know how the streets go, right? And I work with young people 22 years. Rod, you did the whole thing with school safety. These gang members get a lot of young kids to hold these weapons for them. They do these shootings, and then when the shit get hot, they pass off the gun to the shorty. And shorty, if he gets stopped, he might get juvie, might get some bull crap, some lesser charge. And that's how it could have went. Shorty probably never even bust the gun. But I mean, I don't know if he had residue on his hands or not. I'm not sure. I don't know about that. But that's how it could have wound up and how Shorty lost his life because this 21-year-old could have jeopardized this young man's life.
Definitely.
Correct. The thing is, and let's look at it this way. What is a 21-year-old doing hanging with a 13-year-old out in the middle of the night? And he's not related to him. He's not his brother. He's not his cousin. That doesn't look right to me at all. I mean, I wouldn't want my 13-year-old kid hanging with a 21-year-old.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's sad. I feel bad for the parents that deal with this. I mean, and I'm not saying take it for the officer, but when you kill somebody, hopefully, he might feel some type of guilt. I know people that we all know street dudes that kill people. They feel some type of guilt. So it's a bad situation all the way around, man. Like rest in peace, young man, and everything.